What's up, everybody? Troy Cartwright here. Welcome back to another episode of 10-Year Town. Before we get started, I just wanted to say a quick thank you to everybody who has subscribed to our YouTube channel. We hit our subscriber goal yesterday, and that helps us out a ton with unlocking some new opportunities. So just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate it. Thanks. Today's guest is the great Steve Moakler. You know Steve from the songs that he's written for Dierks Bentley, Jake Owen, Reba McEntire, Ben Rector, and many, many more. He's also an amazing artist in his own right. Several songwriters on this podcast have referenced Steve as an early influence on their career. I love this guy. I know you guys are going to love this episode. So without further ado, here he is, Steve Moakler. You know, it's hard out here being a songwriter, artist, entrepreneur.
Yes.
Dad.
Yeah. Husband.
Someone's
got to cut the grass too, you know. I had to cut some lines today.
You got to take care of the fitness.
That too.
You know, it's a lot.
The list goes on.
Golly, how do you do it?
You get good at wearing a lot of hats, and I don't do it well every day, but I do feel grateful to get to wear all those hats. And
yeah,
you know.
Shameless plug. This is shameless plug for you, but I did notice that you're selling the Airstream.
Yes, we are. Thank you for bringing that up.
Have you had any luck?
I have not yet. I appreciate the free. I'm assuming that's free promotion. Do I need to pay you for that after?
No. If somebody wants an Airstream trailer.
Yes.
What year?
It's a 2006.
Okay.
Which is the 75-year anniversary of Airstream.
I think Ben wants to buy it.
Ben, you look interested. We can talk after this, okay?
Ben's been trying to buy a boat.
Oh, man, okay.
I
don't think the Airstream floats, but, you know, you could get a flotation device under it and kind of do both.
If it's going to be a pit of money, Ben is interested.
Well, let me tell you, Ben, I have burned some cash on being in the Airstream business. It's been a lot of fun. I wouldn't regret it, but it's an expensive venture.
Golly, how many do people track trailers with miles?
They don't. That's one of the cool things about trailers. Because there's no engine in it, there really isn't a lot of devaluing.
Just
and tires, and you know, it gets wear and tear just from being out there, but not the kind of wear and tear that's gonna, you know, make a transmission go out, obviously, because there isn't one.
Yeah.
So,
is it hard? Like I don't want anything to end or change ever. So is it like, are you emotionally attached to the Airstream at all? Or
I definitely was.
Yeah.
I think, you know, we this past fall was our 10th year of doing it. So we did. It was 2013 to 2023. Yeah.
Just for context.
Sure.
So you do these kind of like backyard. What would you call it? Home concert?
Yeah, there it really is essentially a home concert. We play at backyards, farms, cul-de-sacs.
Yeah.
And the Airstream just kind of gave it an extra thing, and that was always the
branding.
Backdrop. Yeah, it's a branding element. It was a great green room too, and it was the backdrop to the stage. We'd hang lights on it, put a little stage in front of it, so it just created this cool vibe. You know, every time we pull in, and 10 years of doing it with my wife, and now our two boys have been a part of it now for, almost 5 years. So it was a ton of fun, man. But I think, and I wasn't, if you ask me, honestly, even just last year, I wasn't ready to be done with it.
Yeah.
My wife was ready to be done. Understandably, she's an entrepreneur. She's the one, you know, doing most of the parenting out there because I'm working. So she was going back to wearing a lot of hats. It was getting to be a really hard on her, and so I wasn't ready to let go. But my oldest son's about to start kindergarten.
Yeah,
and it just was like, it's clearly time. But this past fall, I really, my eyes were open to how hard it is. I mean, having a 50-foot rig, I was changing the oil and generators every weekend after every run of shows, and you know, being the muscle. She's selling the merch, but I'm still carrying all those bins out, putting them back in.
Yeah, it was just time.
I'm excited to make space for for something new.
That's right.
Not even totally sure what it is, but
Something.
there's something nice about that 10-year mark that feels complete.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I always start this thing off with the same question, which is, how long have you been in town?
17 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where from?
I'm from a town called Bethel Park, just south of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And I moved down here when I was 18, right out of high school.
Dang.
Yeah.
Did you go to school here?
I did. I went to Belmont University for 2 years.
Only 2.
Just 2. Called it at halftime.
It was all you needed. You absorbed all
I don't know if it was all I needed. I don't know about that. But it was, I almost didn't go to college in the first place, and I was really set on doing music, even before I moved here, and he was even offered a little independent record deal and publishing deal before I moved here from this little label down in Florida, and that kind of, even though that didn't pan out, it kind of made me extra focused, I think, and it felt so much closer because I was like, well, this is going to be easy, right?
Yeah.
Couldn't have been more wrong, but that was a feeling I had at 18.
It's going to take no time at all.
Yeah.
Did you have like a record out at that point, or?
Yeah. So my high school band, we put out some music and, took it as far as we could in our town and beyond. And then I did record a little solo CD when our band broke up, and I gave that CD to one of the bands that came through that my band opened for,
Gotcha.
And he brought it back to the head of his label, and I was working at a dry cleaner at the time, and I got a phone call that he was like, I heard your stuff, and I'd love to fly you down to Florida and talk to you about a record deal and all this stuff. And it was, I was over the moon at the time. I was like, well, here we go. Of course, this is going to happen. You know?
So you moved to Nashville.
Yeah. So I turned down the record deal.
Okay.
And
it wasn't the right thing.
It wasn't the right thing. I got paired up with an attorney that, he basically said, hey, I think you have a lot of talent, and if you want to get in the music industry, it's a long road.
Yeah.
And I'll walk it with you. But if I was you, I wouldn't get in bed with the first person who wants to sleep with you.
Yeah. And
for some reason, that advice just sat right with me. So I turned down the record deal, but I was like, if I'm not going to do this record deal, I'm going to be, I don't want to I'm not going to go to Ohio State. Right. I want to get close to music, and literally, I was going to say Google, but I think it was Yahoo at the time.
Okay.
But, searching music business schools and found Belmont, and got accepted by the grace of God, because I didn't get into schools that were actually easier to get into. I got rejected, but somehow I got into Belmont.
Wow. Yeah. The Yahoo Google search of music business at the time, similar for me, it was like Berkeley, Belmont, I think maybe like USC, which I don't think I would have gotten into.
Would have been cool though. I don't hear that one thrown around a lot. That one's pretty exotic.
I actually went with my dad to visit USC. He had like one of his guys he worked with, sons, was there, and I went and I was like, this is not for, I just
wasn't the same. What was it about it that you weren't feeling?
I've never successfully had a good time in LA. That has continued. That has actually continued like into my adult life. I've been there, I've toured there a couple times, and like I just never have felt like I've like done it right. I know that there's a good time to be had, and one day I will crack the code. But yeah, it was just not for me.
Yeah, it just wasn't the right vibration for you.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I was more of an East Coast guy, I guess, even though I was from Dallas.
Yeah,
I knew I didn't want to go. I wanted to like do something different than like being in the South, which is why I didn't go to Belmont.
Right.
I was like, all right, well, this seems, when you're 17, you just want to be different.
I know exactly what you mean. I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you wound up. You came to the East Side, Troy.
Yeah, I figured it out eventually.
Yeah.
So you go to Belmont. Are you majoring in like songwriting, or? I
was just majoring in music business, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, they didn't have the songwriting major yet. They kind of started that right after I pieced out.
Okay.
But
I also did music business.
Did
so,
you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And look at us now. We got cameras on us making records. Look at this.
I call it an expensive piece of toilet paper.
Yeah.
But no, I did. I learned a lot.
Yeah.
I learned a lot.
I did. I learned a lot in class, and I'm sure like you, I learned even more from just being in the community of people that were into music and wanted to be in the business. I mean, just brushing shoulders with those people, making college friends like you would anywhere else. Yeah. But here, or in a music centered community, was huge.
Yeah. It's great. It's great. It just helps you realize. It really broadens your horizons for like what's possible, and it's the people that you are around, your peers, but it's also like the people they bring in. You know, the people that come talk or whatever.
Totally.
That like was hugely, it was a lot of, for me, it was like a lot of like also figuring out what I didn't want to do. Yeah. You know, taking internships and stuff and going like, oh, this is not quite right. Yeah. But I know that now. Yeah. So what's next?
Yeah. And that saves you a lot of time and energy when you have those little looks.
Oh yeah.
You know,
you gotta
pass.
You gotta see what's over there.
Right.
You know, save yourself some time. So, yeah, well, tell me a little bit more about your experience at Belmont and how that kind of led into the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, I loved being at Belmont, and I think for me it was, you know, it was that classic, you know, going from being the big fish in the small pond, and like I said, I came here with so much confidence and thinking, oh yeah, I thought this is going to be easy, you know, and which was helpful in a lot of ways, having that confidence. But, you know, I was humbled quickly. First open mic night at Belmont, it was so humbling to see how many incredible singers and songwriters there were. And honestly, though, I think it's inspired me to work even harder. And all the time, I spent a ton of time writing songs in my dorm, down in the laundry room and outside my door. And it was a really exciting time. And kind of while I was there, I was going to class and stuff, but I was still, you know, I was doing some recording and doing some showcases. Even that attorney kind of continued to help set up some showcases for me. Didn't get any deals, but again, I was trying. I was taking shots and getting out and trying to call and get shows, and again, having little success, but I was fired up. It was a very inspiring atmosphere. Yeah. Again, kind of going back to what I was saying, just being around people that really wanted that and were filled with that gift. And
that like just proximity.
Yes. You know? Yeah. Yeah. Had to put a band together, you know, we'd rehearse and go to Taco Bell after and
amazing.
Book little shows around here and just try to move the needle a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why did you decide to quit at halftime, so you say?
Well, there was a couple factors. First of all, my mom, when I turned down that record deal, my mom was very relieved. First, as you know, she believes in me, but she was also incredibly practical, and she gave me what I think was really great advice. And she just said, "Hey, I'd really love for you to go to college for 2 years."
I see.
She said, I want you to have that experience. I want you to know what you'd be passing up. Like the look you were talking, I want you to have that look and see what that is. And so I really wasn't there. As I said, I really enjoyed it, but I wasn't there. I was like, I'm counting down the time. But when I got to that halfway mark, I'd showcased for, you know, a handful of labels, and again, didn't get a deal, but I was just so fired up, and the classes were about, I was kind of at a crossroads academically. If I actually switched to English for my final semester to be an English major for music business. So I was about to either have to take Spanish or if I stayed music business, I was going to have to take accounting. And I hardly passed computer fundamentals, which is if you ask anyone that works with me now, they won't be surprised. But I was just like, you know what? I think I'm good. I'm going to go try this.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And
so what did trying look like? What was the first step?
The first step was I put out a record. Okay. My first record is called The Faint Lights, and I just tried to book as many shows as I could, and a lot of them were poorly attended. and I remember cold calling venues and literally not even be able to get a gig. And but eventually, I think, and I had a couple odd jobs I worked in that period of time. Again, this is when I rented a room in West Nashville for $375 a month. So you could try.
Right. You could afford to try.
I could afford to try, which I feel for folks that are making that move right now. It's totally different economically, but I was able to do it. But this also was a time when I owned my record and it came out on iTunes and there were actual sales,
Yeah.
Even $500 a month is like from my record.
Rent, dude.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So between my odd jobs I was working at in that and booking little shows and selling T-shirts and stuff, I was kind of able to pull it together. And
it's amazing.
In that same window of time, I got picked up by a college booking agent, which was huge for me as on the artist side. So I was playing a bunch of college shows, mostly in the Northeast. That's where my agent had connections. So I was playing all these little colleges nobody ever heard of.
Yeah.
And getting a nice check for being 22 or however old I was, 21. And when I was in town, I would play writers' rounds. When my girlfriend at the time was a country songwriter, and she would invite me to sit in and play writers' rounds down at it was Hotel Indigo. I can't remember if it still is, on West End.
Gotcha.
And that was kind of my first kind of segue into the writing scene.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I loved hearing songwriters and playing those songwriter nights and hearing some hit songwriters come through, playing these incredible songs that, a lot of them I'd honestly never even heard. I didn't hear when they were hits on the radio even. I was just hearing them for the first time going, these are unbelievable.
Yeah. Wow.
And getting a taste of that. And that was when Florida Georgia Line was, I remember seeing them play there one night.
Yeah.
Before they were Florida Georgia Line, I remember Casey Musgraves popping in there when she first moved to town and selling her little CDs. I remember thinking, this chick's such an amateur. You don't sell CDs at writers' rounds. But she had something figured out.
She turns out she knew what she was doing.
She knew what she was doing, and she continues to know. But man, I'm seeing her play. There was 12 people in the room, and I could still remember the song she played. And so that energy was really cool. That's cool. Kind of what really inspired me as a songwriter and to kind of move more towards country music and stuff.
Yeah.
Were those nights. Yeah.
So at that point, were you like, all right, I want to try and get like a publishing deal, or what was your? So
that's in that same scene. There was a guy named Jeff Skaggs he was friends with my girlfriend at the time, and he was coming out to see her, and he worked for Cobalt.
Oh, gotcha.
And which is a worldwide admin publishing company for anybody listening. But there was one night he was putting together a bill at the listening room for all the pros, the signed writers.
Yeah.
And a couple people dropped out, and he asked if me and her could fill in.
Yeah.
And the New York office was there, and they saw our set, and they asked him like, hey, why? Does Steve have a deal? Would he be interested in signing something? And Jeff was like, well, he doesn't really fit our model because he doesn't make any money. The Cobalt model was more like, you kind of at the time was like, these are catalogs that are generating money. We're going to admin them.
Yeah.
And I had nothing to admin.
Gotcha.
But I was, he basically offered me a deal, and New York wanted to sign me. So I signed an admin publishing deal with Cobalt, and that was kind of my introduction to Music Row. Jeff Skaggs, I really was so blessed with Jeff, because he was such a champion for me.
Yeah.
And really, he got me in great rooms, and that I really at the time didn't even deserve to be in, but he just believed in me, and kind of made the rounds for years on Music Row. And
amazing.
Through that, yeah.
And I think that is a lot of times what we need as songwriters.
Yes.
Is, it's like, how do you get started? It's like, well, it's a great example. Stick around, try and get close to where you want to be, and things have a way of working themselves out. Something will shake loose, and then you get an opportunity like that, and then now you got a champion. And once you get a champion, you can start to, I don't know, make some waves.
Absolutely, man. And and I really didn't even know what I was doing. It's kind of even at the time, I'm not sure even realized how blessed I was to have him in my corner. It wasn't even till a couple years into it where I went, man, I got so lucky with this guy. And I still feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So yeah, how did it go? Kind of the first pub deal, and like, did that start to change your artist career as well? Like, how did that all kind of go together?
Yeah, it went really well. I think I kind of did that whole thing where I feel like I wrote in the first couple of years, I wrote with just about everybody, you know, and I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed getting to meet all these people and kind of hear all their stories. How many people were artists that are now just songwriters, and people I wrote with that were just songwriters end up becoming artists, and just kind of finding my crowd. I would say even more than Belmont, getting in Music Row.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, these are my people.
Yeah, like, this is my crew.
This is my crew.
Yeah.
I just felt a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
Pretty quickly on Music Row. And, I had some small cuts kind of start to happen, and the songs on my artist records definitely got way better.
Yeah.
From being able to write with folks on Music Row, and it sharpened me a ton as a songwriter. And the kind of the biggest thing that came out of that was getting to meet Travis Meadows. He was a Cobalt writer at the time, and at one of those listening room nights, I saw him play and got the chance to get in the room with him. And the first song we wrote went well. We both recorded it. It's called Wide Open, and then we wrote a song called Riser that we knew we loved, and we thought we'd just play at the Bluebird though, and we didn't think it was going to ever be on the radio or anything like that. We weren't, our heads weren't even in that space, you know. And then Dierks heard it, and that was kind of my first big cut, that really
such a great
changed
song.
The game. Yeah. Thank you.
How did do you remember kind of the journey of like how he heard, I guess, did somebody pitch it to him, or
Jeff Skaggs? Yeah.
There you go.
Jeff Skaggs pitched it to Arthur, that works with Dierks, and that's that. As far as I know, the rest is history. They heard it and just loved it. Named the album that. And all
did
that
you
stuff.
know? Like, what year did you write it?
Oh man, I don't know if I can.
Because it came out in 2015, something like that.
I think it was a little earlier, maybe.
Okay, I remember it was like
I'm not
on
sure.
the radio right before I moved to town.
Oh, that's
cool.
cool.
Just kind of how I remember it, because I was like about to make the move, so I was paying real close attention,
that's so cool.
To like what was going on.
Yeah,
that was such a big record for Dierks too, and that was like
great
the
album.
moment. It's a great album.
It's a great album.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I remember it wasn't very long. I feel like before
it happened pretty quick.
Written to
Yeah.
Now I know how long these things take, and I was so ignorant. That was the first time ever being on that ride or seeing it at all. And but I remember I'll never forget. I just didn't even know what was happening or what it meant. I was so new to Music Row and everything. But I remember opening. I was newly married, and I remember waking up still like in bed with my wife. We opened a laptop and got this email, and it was his whole promo thing for Riser. He announced the album, and it was so epic and cool, and we were just like, this is so awesome.
Wow.
I remember that.
Yeah.
That's kind of even more than even hearing on the radio for some reason. I remember that moment of just the whole branding and all that. It was so cool.
It's amazing. Did that start to kind of change your life in terms of the rooms you're getting into, or how did it affect your, artist career and all that stuff?
Yeah, I think I definitely elevated the rooms I was getting into.
Yeah.
I think I can look back and see, oh wow, I had some really great writes in that year. It was pretty stacked.
Yeah.
So there was definitely that, and and again, when you get in those better rooms, I feel like you learn even more from people that are just been further down the road. And then it did come to that point, I guess, and I ended up putting that song on my third record, completely independently.
Yeah.
And I kind of hit a crossroads where I think that song even did kind of garner some interest in me as an artist at that time.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, I don't know. I remember feeling kind of not sure, and I wrestled with that, still do, but really wrestled with it a lot for years, kind of like which way do I want to go? How much do I want to pour into the artist side versus the songwriter side?
Were you kind of the mind that, well, if I double down on the artistry, it will take away from my songwriting career, or was it like fear of the unknown? Or
I think for me, it was the fear of the unknown. I really loved my life. I was afraid to derail it.
Yeah.
I think I was, to me, I had fears that the artist life on the big stage was going to be just really grueling and hard. And I was afraid I wasn't going to love what I did anymore.
Yeah. That's a very wise way. Most people just go, I want to be famous.
I definitely had some of that, but I don't know, man. I was kind of weary of it.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I did feel like it was it became a fear of mine. I wasn't sure of how much it was rooted in wisdom. I kind of felt like I had to see for myself.
Yeah.
So when I signed with Creative Nation, Beth Laird, she's amazing, but she signed me without really me having a clear direction. And she said, we believe in you. We're going to build a team around you. And these are kind of the routes we believe you can go. And before we really start doing stuff, we want you to decide that. And we're going to build a team around that.
Right.
So it was kind of like, do you want to just be a songwriter? Do you want to be a singer-songwriter artist, to kind of do both, or do you want to go for it and really see what this big stage could look like?
Yeah.
And through a lot of, sleepless nights and praying about it, man, I ended up deciding to go for it.
Yeah.
To go for the big show and to see what it was all about.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I just had to see for myself. I think I played it so much through my head.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not going to have peace with that later in life. I want to know what it would be like to take the big swing. You know?
It's amazing.
So that's what we ended up doing at that juncture.
Yeah. Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed a lot of things about it. I didn't get a record deal. We tried, didn't get one. Creative Nation said, "Hey, we're gonna make your records. We'll be your record label."
Yeah.
And we ended up hiring an independent radio team, and the song called Suitcase ended up getting played on XM, and it was a hit on XM. So we went to FM, and I did get to go on a real deal radio tour, like I'd always heard about.
Yep.
And it was pretty cool, man. It wasn't like, I think I was afraid there was going to be a bunch of scary monsters in that whole thing, and there weren't. And actually, I really liked meeting the radio people and getting the glimpse of what that's like, and playing the radio shows, and so the things I liked, I think, because of the momentum, mostly on XM, I got to be on some big tours and go out. Like, I got to play in arena in my hometown, opening for Tim McGraw and Faith Hill. That was the first arena show I ever did in Pittsburgh. So that was a dream come true. I got to, make an Opry debut and run a shows at Willie Nelson. So all these really cool things that I'll always treasure, those memories, and I got to do it. But at the same time, I think in those 2 years when we were really gunning it for it, my band and I drove across the country and back 4 times and broke down more times than I could count. I hated paying for that freaking Sprinter. Now I'm paying for an Airstream, at least. But I remember it was grueling.
Yeah.
Grueling. Yeah. So even the highs, those highlight reel moments, they weren't like, when I was waking up in the morning, I wasn't like, give me more of that.
Yeah.
That wasn't really the thought. And to this day, it's not really either.
Yeah.
So but it's taken a lot of soul searching to kind of get to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there is nothing wrong with just going, the store's open. Let's walk through it.
Yeah.
And see. And a lot of times, you know, you think you're going to end up over there and you end up over there. But it's very interesting, all the stuff you kind of pick up along the way. And, you know, you wouldn't be where you're at today without having walked through that door, you know?
No way. So, no. I don't regret it at all. And there was a lot of really cool things that came out of that chapter, and it's really cool that the way that my team, you know, Creative Nation, really made that possible and took that risk.
Well, I think that's what's really cool about your story, and your kind of career trajectory, if you will, is you know, always, my perception, you know, I know you a little bit, and we write together some and talk a little bit, but I just feel like you've always been kind of at the forefront of just doing something a different way.
Thank you for saying that.
In a way that I find, you know, inspiring and interesting, because, you know, you do this like, sorry, I forget.
The Hometowns and Campgrounds tour?
Yeah. Where you just sort of go, okay, well, I want to play shows, so let's just go make it happen. And then you do it in a way that, I don't know, is very interesting to me. It seems like a more interesting experience than let's go find, you know, 10 clubs that seat 250 people and do, which is also a cool way to do it.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong way to do it, but I just think it's interesting and cool that you kind of did it and have done it your own way.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I really do. And that means a lot. I think a lot of it too is just going, at the end of the day, what I love about this job is I love getting to create something meaningful.
Yeah.
And connecting with people over that, whether it's the songwriters in the room that we're writing it, or if it's the people in the room when you're performing. Those are the key ingredients for me, you know, and that's what makes me want to get up in the morning, you know, and as long as I can keep that intact and keep a little money coming in the bank to fund the whole operation, then I'm in, you know,
absolutely.
But if my soul starts to feel sucked and there's a lot of stuff getting in the way of that thing, that's when I start to stop having fun, you know?
Yeah. It's really hard, man.
Yeah.
It's hard. You know, I do this kind of thing independently myself, and I'm having to constantly, I don't know, every 3 to 6 months, I'm just having to take a second and stop what I'm doing, kind of look in the mirror. Yeah. I don't know if it's actually the mirror or whatever, and just go, okay, what parts of this am I liking and what am I not liking? Like, what is taking away from this thing that I love? And that can be really hard to figure out, because it's a lot of fear as well for me. Mm-hmm. You know, it's, for a while there, it was like, okay, TikTok's working. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to post on TikTok every day, you know? And then a year and a half goes by and I'm like, man, I'm really depressed and miserable. I wonder why that is. And it's like, oh, it's probably because you're staring at your phone for like 5 hours a day. Yeah. So, you know, just going, all right, well, I like the results I'm getting from this. You know, it's moving my career forward, but maybe I can do it differently.
Right.
You know, and so just trying to find a new way of making content or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just a constant, you know, realigning all the time of just trying to make sure I'm not making myself go insane.
Right. And it does keep changing, right? You can't just do the same thing you've always done. You have to
innovate.
Because you're changing, your life's changing, what's working for you, what's working for your audience, and what's happening in the industry, how money is generated, how people are consuming content, all that stuff is constantly changing. Yep. So on the good days, you can see it as a challenge, and on the bad days, it's like it's an insurmountable hill, you know?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely a mountain to climb.
Yeah.
What are you what's keeping you inspired and excited these days?
Man, one of the things is, and again, this is kind of another spin-off of, similar to the Hometowns, is this thing called Song Portraits that is something that came about, a project that came about during COVID, actually. And
Gotcha.
one of the people that hosted one of our hometown stops, he approached me during COVID and said, "Hey, would you ever be down to, help me write a song for my wife for her 40th birthday?"
Yeah.
And my first instinct was like, no, I mean, that's not how we do it in Nashville.
Yeah.
I just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But my wife, Gracie, she's like, you're a professional songwriter, right? And I was like, yeah. She's like, you're trying to make money writing songs, right? Yeah. And you can't go on tour because it's a pandemic. I was like, yeah. She's like, why don't you give it a shot? Like, just name your price and do it, whatever.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right. So she led the horse to water, and I drank. So I loved it, man. I just kind of made this questionnaire and curated it for him, and man, it just came so naturally. It was really fun to write a song. So kind of made it a thing and put a campaign out there and just directly to our fans, and it went really well. And so we took a year off from that, but we just launched it again this year, and I'm diving into those right now.
That's awesome.
So I do get a lot of inspiration from that, because as you know, in the Music Row grind, we write so many songs that people never hear.
Right.
The majority are never heard, and we write them hoping that everybody hears them.
Yeah.
We have this giant target, and we miss most days, and it's a really amazing pursuit. I'll always love doing that, but this Song Portraits thing has been really inspiring for me because, well, first of all, it's a connection with our audience, a really deep, meaningful connection with somebody, a couple people, but we just flip that upside down and go, instead of writing a song for everybody, we're just gonna write a song for one person, and the target gets really small.
That's pretty cool,
and it's really fun and fulfilling to take a crack at it. And so that I'm getting a lot of mixing that in with the Music Row,
fulfillment. And you've
has been really nice. Yeah.
Been on tour with Dave Barnes?
I'm about to go out with Barnes. Yeah. Our first run got rescheduled. So we're starting at the end of the month and
that's awesome.
Doing 20 something shows this year. So
I love that.
That'll be cool. I haven't been in ticketed venues for a while. I've been doing the Hometowns thing.
Yeah.
It was kind of like pandemic and babies and stuff. I feel like I've done like 8 in-person venue shows, ticketed venue shows in the last 5 years. So I'm excited to get back out and do that. Yeah.
Dude, Dave is so hysterical.
I know.
I'm sure y'all will have no fun.
I know. I think it's going to be pretty great. Man.
That's awesome. I just love, you seem to have a really deep connection with your fans.
Yeah.
And I certainly turn my own self into a mental pretzel a lot, going, how am I gonna? I'll book a string of shows, and then I'll sit there for a month spiraling, going, how am I gonna sell tickets to these shows?
Oh, dude, I've done that.
And then,
I
don't know, from my perspective, watching your career, you just seem to like make a video and get on the internet and like tell people I'm playing shows. And I'm like, oh man, that's really smart.
Well, dude, I don't know if it's smart. I'm not
just telling you the fans that you have that you're coming or that you're willing to come to them. That seems like a very good idea. I'm like, oh, that's too direct. So
that's hilarious.
Yeah. Dude, I don't know if you realize that that's like innovative and takes courage of some kind, but for me, I'm looking at it, I'm like, I should do that.
Well, dude, thank you for saying that. It has worked, I think, just because our fans are really wonderful, man, and they've really invited us into their lives, and it's been cool. They take care of me, man.
Yeah,
it's a two-way street, and
it's not rocket science.
It's not, but I commend you. I mean, people that are putting out more, like you're putting out so much content, like this podcast and your presence on the other socials, like that consistency that you have of outpouring, that to me is very courageous. And
well, thank you.
I commend that.
It's just, it's just a psychosis, I think. That I have. It's like, well, if I stop, it might all go away. So, but I have been trying to kind of start to like go, okay, we've done a lot.
Yeah.
Let's try and do less, but have it mean more. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like a different
sense.
way of trying to think about it.
Yeah.
And it's a long process, but that's kind of where I've been. That's the kind of thing in the distance that I'm looking at right now is going, all right, how do we do this, but tweak it?
Yeah.
You know, so it's fun,
like
man.
it, man.
It's all
awesome.
just a puzzle we're trying to figure out.
Yeah. I'm right there with you, man.
So what, if you could kind of go back to the beginning of your career when you first got started, what's a piece of advice that you would give yourself?
Man.
It doesn't even have to be, a lot of people think they got to find some profound music statement, you know?
Yeah.
But it could just be about life.
Yeah.
Just what's something you wish you knew kind of when you started your journey?
I think I would say, man, it's you're really probably not going to end up on any kind of direct path to the top of the mountain. And the key, I mean, I know it sounds cliche, but this really is what I would say is just the key is just enjoying the process and enjoying the ride. And, you know, I've always said to people, it's like, I think it's less about what you're doing and more about who you're doing it with. Mm-hmm. And whether that's the people you're writing songs with or your own family at home or your band on the road, on stage, or the people that you're in their backyard playing. Like that's, like when we focus on that, the process and the people, I think there's a lot of fulfillment to be found, you know, and I think more so than any milestone can really give you, you know?
Yeah.
Those milestones, I you know, my milestones are humble, but I feel like even in those ones, I'm like, man, those were cool. Those are cool, like pictures to put up on the fridge and stuff. But like the stuff is the people and the process. Yeah. You know?
Mark Beeson on here one time said like, this is the ride. Like, like you're in it.
Yeah.
The people you do it with, you know, in the writer room, whatever you did today, like that's it, you know, and he's somebody that has years and years of wisdom and milestones and all these accolades along the way. But he's like, nah, it's just today. It's right now, you know, and I love that. Always stuck with me, which is man, similar to what you're saying.
I think it's so easy to give your joy away to some distant, well, when I do this, when I do that, when I get there, I'll let myself feel like a success or feel like I have meaning and value. And that's what I would just say, well, don't do that. You know, if you're starting this journey, like just watch out for that. Have goals and have things you want to do and you're aiming at, but like, you know, if you're enjoying the people in the process, you're winning. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't, you can't sit around and go, well, when I have the whatever single, then I'll be happy. That's a trap.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because you won't be.
Yeah.
And
you'll be like
I've heard enough people that have had it and they've told me.
Yeah, you'll be like the dog that caught the car or something. It's like, what do I do now? Yeah. You know? It's reassuring to hear somebody else say, I like try and believe it myself.
Yeah, but there's a lot of resistance against that. That's not easy to let because again, you the enemy in your mind wants to come in and go, no, you haven't done anything. This person's done all this stuff. You don't deserve to be happy. You're not bringing meaning and value. Yeah, you know, they'll point out all the things you haven't done or you didn't do well enough. And
my wife will always ask me like, what's going on with you today? And I'm like, my mind is an asshole. That's what's happening to me today. Like I know nothing's wrong other than I've been sitting here with my own thoughts, and I've convinced myself that, you know, it's all pointless, that it doesn't matter, but it's
easy
never
to do.
It's never true. And I'm always trying to lean into, you know, the friendships and relationships and, you know, just getting to make the music or like the other day I was, I'm working on this record right now, you know, and I was in like Peter Frampton's studio, and some guy shows up with a Fender 400 pedal steel guitar that weighs 85 pounds and sets it up, and me and him and Brandon Hood are just sitting there like trying to figure out how to connect the like foot pedals. You know, I don't know anything about pedal steel. And I was getting so frustrated because I was like, man, I really got to cut this vocal and go to Baja Burrito. You know? And I just sat there and I was like, this is so special. This is such a uniquely Nashville experience. Like, why am I not just sitting here enjoying like the uniqueness of this moment and the beauty of Nashville and what this is? You know? Yeah. But it's hard.
It is hard, man. That voice in your head can be cruel.
It can be. Well, do you have anything else? Where can people find your like tour dates and song portraits and stuff like that?
Yeah, so it all lives on stevemoakler.com.
Gotcha.
All the links to song portraits, tour dates coming up. But yeah, you can follow along on Instagram and Facebook, Spotify, Apple, all that
also,
stuff.
If you need some emergency confetti.
Yes. My wife has a really cool confetti centered gift line called Emergency Confetti.
I love it.
And it's so pretty rad.
That's so cool.
Confetti for all occasions and good news. So
I love it.
Check it out.
That's awesome. Well, Steve, thank you so much for being here.
Troy, thank you for having me, man.
I appreciate it.
Sit and talk with you.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. That's it. That's the pod. See you later. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of 10 Year Town. If you're still listening, you must have liked it. So we hope that you will leave us a rating or review on Apple or Spotify, or give us a subscription on YouTube. It's all free. Don't cost you nothing. But we appreciate you being here, and thank you for supporting the 10 Year Town community. See you next week.